We have what I think will be a very interesting program here this morning, as we have some folks in from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they're at 301 North 33rd Street in Rogers, and the pastor has a name that I can't pronounce. I'm going to get him to help me here this morning. Help me with that last name there.
Radulescu.
And the first name is?
Ovidiu Radulescu. I was born and raised in Romania.
Romania, all
Yes.
right. Well, the only person from Romania I've ever had in any association with was a lady named Comaneci, who was she was a great trapeze, gymnastics.
Yes.
She was quite a.
She's still in the business.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's good. Hey, the reason I say this is going to be quite interesting. We'll have a little opportunity to find out about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we also are going to talk about Islam and Christianity in prophecy. And boy, Islam is in the news big time in this day and age. We every time I turn on the TV, we've got this debate. We've got some political correct people who keep pointing out that Islam is a religion of peace, and then we've got others who say, but what about these radicals? We've got a story this morning out of the Mideast where Turkey is sitting by with their tanks while a town of about 50,000, about the same size as Rogers, is about to be toppled with a slaughter of people, maybe at the hands of these ISIS people. So first of all, kind of clue me in here on Islam and Christianity and prophecy. And do you have a special program coming up here in the area?
Actually, we're halfway through a 10-night prophecy seminar.
Okay.
And we're right at the halfway point where we're talking about the third and final conflict between Islam and Christianity.
Okay. So it would be appropriate to invite people out to that. We ran some announcements on that here, and if people have their appetite whetted here, their curiosity aroused by this conversation today, maybe we can have an increased attendance here for the rest of your program, okay?
All right, that would be good.
Okay, now, just kind of fill me in. Hey, I'm quite interested in this myself, and what have you covered so far in your program, and what can you tell us?
Okay. The prophecy that we look at is Daniel chapter 11. It's a prophecy that begins in Daniel's time and ends with the setting up of God's kingdom. So far, it's been accurate for 2,500 years. Unlike most other Bible prophecies, this is not symbolic. He starts talking about there will be 4 more kings in Persia, and as pointing out what they will do. Then it switches to Greece, and he's talking Persia by name, Greece by name, and this is the most literal of all Bible prophecies, but it's been the most overlooked of all Bible prophecies. It then comes down to the time of Jesus Christ, where the Prince of the Covenant is broken. That's right in the middle of the prophecy. And then it goes into the breakup of the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire divides into 2 parts. The northern part and a southern part, and Jerusalem gets caught in the middle. It has 3 conflicts following that breakup. And if you know your history, the southern part of the Mediterranean, the Roman Empire, goes Islamic, the northern part Christian, and Jerusalem does get caught in the middle. The first conflict describes the Crusades. The second conflict describes both the Ottoman Empire and the time of the Reformation. The third conflict is in the time of the end. And we are entering that time of the third and final conflict between Islam and Christianity.
What does the prophecy indicate is in store for people?
Well, verse 40 to 43 describes this third and final conflict, the time that we're in. And it says the king of the south, I see that as radical Islam, will be pushing against the king of the north. And the 2 previous attacks were holy wars. So I assumed years ago, I've been working on this thing for 13, 14 years, but I assumed years ago that we're looking at a third and final holy war. And radical Islam has declared jihad, or holy war, against anybody that disagrees with them. Mm-hmm. Eventually, the king of the north, Christianity, will respond in kind with holy war, which is just beginning to happen. And so at this point, the prophecy says it will then go like a whirlwind, very rapid conflict, where we're going to see radical Islam overthrown, which will include the nation of Egypt and many other nations, according to the prophecy. Moderate Islam will end up following Christianity, as the president right now is putting together a coalition of Sunni countries that will back him. And there will be a group within Islam and a group within Christianity who actually follow Jesus Christ in the Bible. They will get caught in the middle between the two. Now, so when I'm talking Christianity, I'm not saying all Christianity is a good thing. Because if you look back in the history at the time of the Crusades, the Crusaders didn't act like Jesus. They killed men, women, children. The prophecy said they would lie and kill, which is exactly what happened during the Crusades. Same thing happened during the Ottoman Empire. So another way of putting it, God's people in this prophecy always get caught in the middle, just like Jerusalem does. If you really believed in Scripture and sharing Jesus Christ, if you went up in the Christian part of the world in the time of the Dark Ages, say, they would kill you for sharing Scripture in the common language. You go down into the Islamic world, you could get killed for it there too. God's people have always been caught in the middle between the two powers.
Okay, now this program that's ongoing at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Rogers is looking at this in depth, isn't it? You're looking at it in depth. Now, I'm sure there are people listening right now who are saying, okay, now you introduced the pastor here a few moments ago. At least he told us who he was. And I'm not going to try to dwell on that name there all that much. But tell them who you are. And I know you mentioned to me that you have been off and on in Northwest Arkansas from time to time.
I've actually lived in Northwestern Arkansas 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And I am right now a traveling prophecy seminar presenter.
Okay. And your name?
Tim Roosenberg.
Okay, so it is you that wrote this book.
I wrote that book.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, great.
And so I wrote that book. This summer I was actually in northern Nigeria, Boko Haram territory.
Wow.
Presenting Daniel 11 to pastors in northern Nigeria, one of which has since lost his church to Boko Haram, burned to the ground, and his members had to flee. And all across North America, in November I'm heading for a 3-week tour of cities of Australia to make presentations.
Okay.
And so
you're back in Northwest Arkansas, and you are conducting this program over at the Seventh-day Adventist Church and discussing Islam and Christianity and the prophecy therein.
Correct.
Well, I think it's fascinating, Tim. First of all, I congratulate you on this book, and I'm going to look forward to taking some time and reading this. But you have written this book. It's entitled Islam and Christianity and Prophecy. Tim Roosenberg, and with Tim Lael. Now,
I hate writing.
Okay, so
that book was sitting on my brain for years, and I finally said, okay, hired a guy to help me get it from my brain to the paper.
Okay, now this book, how would people secure this book? How would they buy this book?
Easiest way is Amazon.
Amazon.
And the cheapest way to get it is the ebook form.
Ebook form on Amazon. Okay.
Yes.
Now, you took a while to write this, you say?
Actually, I was thinking of writing it for years. Once I hired this guy, from the time we hired him till we had a book in hand was just a few months.
The people that would really find this book to be fascinating would be our so-called religious scholars, people who, and I think the general public would find it as well. But
yes,
people who have read the Bible, who consider themselves to be Bible knowledgeable, they're gonna really spend some time with
now,
this.
Let me share. You mentioned 2 different groups there.
Okay.
Those that are familiar with the Bible and the general population that's not as familiar with the Bible. There's a reason for both of them. for the general population, a lot of people aren't quite so sure, does Bible prophecy really fit? This prophecy, like I said, is not symbolic. And for 2,500 years, step by step, generation after generation, this thing's been plodding along through there, and it's been completely accurate. And we document that going through the book. And then we're looking at this thing and we're saying, all right, here's what's about to happen. This conflict is the third and final. You know, you hear people saying, yeah, we're going in the conflict again. But most people aren't saying it's third and final. Mm-hmm. There have been plenty of news documentaries or stuff about this being the third conflict. But the prophecy says it's third and final. And we can say it's going to be first the push from radical Islam, then it becomes a holy war from the Christian side. And then radical Islam as we know it goes down. And Islam as we know it changes radically and really goes down.
Now, what is the style of your presentation in the evening? You are a prophecy presenter, and you're over at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Rogers. The program starts each evening at what time? 7 maybe?
Okay. It starts at 5:30.
5:30.
Which is a repeat of the previous night's material.
Okay.
And then at 7:15 we have new material. So actually tonight at 5:30 I'm actually going to be describing this third and final holy war.
Okay. Now give us a little preview on that here. What are some of the things, points that you're going to cover tonight?
Okay. Our program is very simple. A couple of announcements and then 1 hour of teaching. And it's not so much a preaching kind of thing. It's a teaching atmosphere. Mm-hmm. All right? And so what I'm going to pick up tonight is how Islam has fulfilled this prophecy up to this third and final conflict. And then I'm going to describe how ISIS and others have been changing this truly into a holy war, and how we're getting a Christian response that is holy war mentality coming back as a result.
Now, in the prophecy or in your studies, I take it that maybe you anticipated a group like ISIS, where they seem to be, shall we say, dedicated to destroying everybody that disagrees with them.
Yes.
That's about the size of it, isn't it? Even other Muslims.
But, you know, people are going to say that's easy to anticipate.
Yeah.
But what I'm also anticipating is something else.
Okay.
And that's what most people are missing, and that's the Christian, so-called Christian response. Okay. And that is, in the time of the Crusades, the world followed papal-led Christianity because they were afraid of the spread of Islam. During the Ottoman Empire, once again, the papal system was involved in organizing the Christian nations of Europe to resist the Ottoman push into Europe. And so I've been watching for a papal response, the King of the North, the leader of the North, the Christian powers, that would lead into it. And that happened on August 7th of this summer as a response to ISIS and their push. Because on August 7th, for the first time since the Ottoman Empire, the papacy called for action, military action, against an Islamic power. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's important. That was on August 7th. And then there was some debate, just how serious was this call for action? I don't know if you remember that discussion that went on.
Right.
And I have statements from a couple of papal diplomats within the next couple of days that clarify that he really did mean military action. And if you want, I'd just read one or two of them.
Sure.
This is August 11 from the Catholic Online, a article called Chaldean Patriarch Calls for Armed Response. Referring to military action, Archbishop Giorgio Lingua, the Vatican's nuncio to Iraq, told Vatican Radio, "This is something that had to be done, otherwise the Islamic State could not be stopped. Such a call is virtually unprecedented for a papal envoy in modern times. But our age is an extraordinary one, and the Islamic State has no interest in a bargaining table. Instead, the Islamic State is bent on genocide and barbarism, ruthlessly exterminating anyone who opposes them." The prophecy says from the moment that the King of the North, the leader of Christianity, involves in holy war type messaging, that this thing will go like a whirlwind. Now, in my mind, I'm having a bit of a struggle. Is this all the way over the edge, or is it just right at the edge?
Right.
This papal call for action. I do know that just over 24 hours later, the United States bombed ISIS for the first time after that call for action. I also know that because of that it is now unified many of the radical Muslims that were not as unified. They're more unified now than they were. And the Pope is on an official hit list of radical Islam. And if they ever take action on him, we go over the edge into a holy war.
It would seem to me that there may be another trigger about to happen. We've got a city of about 50,000, as I alluded to a few minutes ago, that's on the verge of being overrun by ISIS. And the theory is here, or at least the fear, is that you're going to have unprecedented mass executions of people by ISIS when they overrun this town. That in itself could be the trigger.
It could be. I mean, you're looking at so many possible triggers in here. And so here's the thing, though. Every time we've had a Christian response, it is not only the Christian holy wars not only brought an end to that phase of the spread of radical Islam, but it's also brought persecution within Christianity for those who don't agree with the official Christian line.
Okay, can you give me an example of that?
Following the Crusades, we have the Inquisition.
Okay.
If you didn't agree with the leader of the Christian world, you were in big trouble. The Reformation, if you didn't, by the way, the prophecy, talking about the Reformation at that time that said there would be people who would do great exploits for God, but as a result they would be killed by sword and by flame. And during that time period, that's exactly what happens. So this prophecy, again, like I said, is very literal. And it's as you go through it, and it's in chronological order. You don't have to figure out the order. I mean, it's laying it down point by point by point. And in the prophecy, immediately following the third and final conflict, there is persecution within Christianity by Christians again. It happens twice already in history. We're partway into the third one, and the third one does the whole cycle again, according to the prophecy.
Now, if people come out tonight, they can come out at 5:30 to the church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, 301 North 33rd Street in Rogers, and they will get a recap of yesterday's program.
Correct.
A repeat of yesterday.
Which is the third and final conflict.
Right.
And then at 7:15, they will get a presentation, the news from the East and the mark of the beast. The Daniel and Revelation are very parallel. And in Daniel 11, right after this third conflict, you have these tidings from the East and tidings from the North, a final message to from God to his people, and then you have a persecution. The same thing is, it's the parallel of the mark of the beast persecution, if you're familiar with the book of Revelation.
Now, our guest this morning is Tim Roosenberg, who has written a book, Islam and Christianity in Prophecy. That book is available if you go to Amazon, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners out there will want to pick that up and use it as a reference.
And Kermit, we also have a web page.
Okay.
We're actually all 10 hours of our seminar are archived on that web page.
Okay, so if people absolutely cannot come to the seminar, then they can still get this information.
Right.
Okay.
They can also go to YouTube and Google Islam and Christianity, what about ISIS? And they will come up to a 40-minute video I have just on that topic.
All right.
And that one is taking off with 500 to 1,000 people a day in the last few days watching that.
Now, you indicate that you're about midway through the entire program.
Yes.
And, of course, I should say again that Tim is a prophecy presenter, and he has been all over the country. In fact, he was in the zone there of one of these terror groups that you've been hearing about in the news. Tim, how far are you going to take us through this, and do you see a final, shall we say, result.
Well, as I said, if we're truly at the pivot point,
Yeah.
and we go over the edge into a holy war from the Christian side. Now remember, a holy war is the least holy of all wars.
Right.
Because in a conventional war, at least in the Western way of thinking in a conventional war, you try to avoid civilian casualties. In a holy war, there are no civilians. Notice the jihad, they're already killing men, women, and children.
Yeah.
Once it goes into a holy war, both sides do that. I did notice the other day that Obama isn't even following his own guidelines to avoid civilian casualties when he goes after ISIS. So there's already a backing away from trying to avoid civilian casualties because you have the women supporting the radicals. They're radical. The children have been radicalized. How many people have you been hearing already saying to stop them, you're going to have to kill them and wipe them out?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to stop them,
Right.
to eliminate the cancer. That's already going to holy war terminology. I do need to share something.
Sure.
I'm kind of an equal opportunity offender.
Okay. Good. Okay.
And that is, I see trouble on both sides of this thing.
Okay.
The prophecy, the king of the north and the king of the south, have caused problems for centuries and do to the very end. And people ask me, what about the God of Islam, the God of Christianity are the same? And I say, unfortunately, here's what the scripture and history teach me. Many Christians and many Muslims are serving the same false god of force, fear, and anger. Do it our way or else. The Inquisition, the Crusades, what you see in jihad right now, there's lots of that on both sides. However, some Christians and some Muslims have either found or in search of the true God of love, truth, peace, and forgiveness. And you're going to find him in Scripture. But most Christians aren't really reading the Scripture a whole lot and putting it in their practice in their life. They're just kind of going along with the flow.
Tim, I've got to ask you this. Now, you obviously are schooled in prophecy, and I'm sure you would consider yourself as a well-read expert on Bible prophecy. Do you consider yourself, based on all of your studies and everything, do you consider yourself to be kind of a expert on Islam?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I'm a Bible prophecy person.
Okay.
And now, I've learned a lot about Islam over time, okay?
Yeah.
I don't consider myself an expert on that. However, when I was in northern Nigeria teaching a group of 90 pastors about Daniel 11 and 12, about 10 of those guys were once Muslim. One of them was a judge and Muslim teacher before he became Christian. By the way, usually because of dreams and visions. It's amazing the stories that you hear. And I was expected that they would correct me wherever I was wrong on my understanding of Islam. Mm-hmm. The amazing thing was, they didn't correct me. They said I was on track. Because I'm dealing with the broad picture. And with the broad picture, that was pretty easy to stay on track. But I figured I'd get corrected there. But by the way, that's an interesting place. I knew I had a military checkpoint on the front of the church where I was presenting. And on the weekend, we had 2,000 people in there. Mm. And so I've got guys with machine guns all over the front of the church. I stepped out the back door, and there was no military back there. There was a police officer with a machine gun sitting there at the back door. And so when we talk about religious freedom here in this country, most people have no idea what it's like in the other parts of the world where you've got to have a ring of people with machine guns around a building to make sure you don't get blown up while you're presenting.
Wow. Well, I want you to know that the reason I asked that question is not to be a sharpshooter or anything like that.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I was not, but I wanted to find out if you had an opinion on the Quran. And we keep hearing all of these statements about, Islam, the Islam religion is a religion of peace, and yet we've got stories coming out like this beheading over in Oklahoma City, where they're saying that this guy was going to a mosque, and other people who were going to that mosque have come out and allegedly have said that they're teaching things there that are really contrary good common sense. In other words,
Okay.
so that was the drift I wanted. I think our people here are really hungering for some knowledge about this, because they're like me. They're kind of confused.
Here's the challenge on the Quran. You have English versions and Arabic versions.
Okay.
And I'm told they're not alike.
Okay.
I mean, similar but not alike. And in the Arabic, it's more violent tending.
Okay.
And that it depends on your interpretation. Now, you can have somebody look at the Bible and take some things and go way off base as
Yes,
well.
Exactly.
So it's really going to depend more on the person reading it necessarily than the book itself. Now, I think the Quran can be used to bring people closer to God, but I'm kind of the reverse of a Muslim. I believe the Bible is God's full inspiration,
Right.
and that was a watered-down, changed version.
Right.
They're going to say the same about the Bible in reverse. However, there are Muslims who take the Bible as truly, and they want to be people of the book, of the Bible, and place it higher than the Quran.
Well, I'm curious if here in the United States, in those mosques, what kind of version is presented? Is Shia or the Sunni type of...
The mosque that I've been into, and I've been in a couple, even the sermon is given in Arabic and English. And it's supposedly the same, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
And so the news stories out of the Middle East, the English version and the Arabic version are not always alike. And they're talking about rescuing Al-Quds and things like that. And there's, the Brotherhood was saying they were going to honor the treaties with Israel while they rescued Al-Quds from the rapist. Well, Al-Quds is Jerusalem. How are they going to honor the treaties with Israel while they recapture Jerusalem? But they use Al-Quds so that the Western media and the Western people don't pick up what they're talking about. So the language thing is there, and radical Islam uses a double-barrel approach, one in English, one in Arabic.
But this Shia Sunni, it's here too in the United States?
Oh, the people in the mosque here in the U.S. are terrified that the Sunni-Shia divide is going to start resulting in killings here in North America.
Wow.
So the Shia is the...
I have a friend that is well connected with some big mosque, and he's just a friend of the imam. He's not a Muslim, but his friend, the imam, keeps telling him the fears that they have of what could be happening if that conflict breaks loose here.
Okay, we are nearing the end of our allotted time here this morning, but I want to give you a few extra minutes here, if possible. And sir, if you would tell us a little bit about the Seventh-day Adventist Church and about your schedule of services over there, if you would.
Well, okay.
And I'm talking about your regular...
Yeah, regular service. That's why I was looking at the pastor here.
Sure.
This weekend at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be presenting something totally different, which is surviving and thriving in troubled times.
Yeah.
I use survival stories that give the spiritual principles of survival. And by the way, one of those is being rescued by the National Park Service over on the Buffalo River, caught in a floodwater.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun if somebody wants to be there. That's Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock. But Pastor, why don't you tell them where your church is and what times your services are?
Well, I would love to have a half hour
Yeah.
at this radio station. By the way, thank you so much for your kindness and for inviting people over there during this time.
Sure.
Our services are Saturday, the 7th day of the week, according to the Bible. Every Saturday morning, the 9:30 is the teaching, the Sabbath school, Sunday school. We are calling Sabbath school,
Yep.
and 11 o'clock is the regular worship service.
Well, listen, we appreciate all of our churches here in KURM country. This radio station dedicates itself to church services on Sunday, particularly. We have, and we've got some services during the week that we have on the radio. Now, my mission this morning is to convey to our audience out there that they are really welcome to come to your prophecy program that is going on. It
People
starts,
of every faith or no faith.
yeah, and I hope that some of our listeners will make it a special point to come over there this afternoon, 5:30.
5:30?
5:30, And now the program starts at 7:30. The 5:30 is a
second one.
recap.
Yeah.
The second one is at 7:30, and they would be that would last until about what time?
About 8:30.
Till about
1 hour.
8:30.
There is actually a light meal in between,
Okay.
so they can come and eat between.
Absolutely. And again, that is at 301 North 33rd Street in Rogers, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And regardless of what denomination you subscribe to, regardless of what church you go to, I think you'll find this to be a very fascinating subject and very meaningful spiritual experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And fellas, our best. And Tim, I don't know how much I owe you for this book, but
Enjoy it.
But I certainly
Enjoy it.
We'll look forward to reading this. This is a beautifully done book here, a nice cover on it, and it's called Islam and Christianity in Prophecy. And once again now, as we said, it's available. If you go to Amazon, you can buy this book, or you can Google, help me out here,
You can go to
YouTube.
and watch our What About ISIS video, or you can go to islamandchristianity.org, and you can watch all of our presentations and
All right.
read a bunch of different materials there at our website.
Now we're halfway through the program, so it'll continue through what date?
Sunday night.
Through Sunday night of this week.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hey, gentlemen, our best to you. And,
Thank
and
you.
we thank you for the job that you do, and wish you the very best.
Thank
God
you so
bless
much.
you.